Hello, this is the Knowledge Catalog. We are going to discuss a new thing under the biological sciences, specifically about cell signaling. If you want to have a copy of this presentation, you may contact me through facebook.com/knowledge catalog/. I will gladly give you a copy of this video for free, so just don't hesitate to message me, okay? Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so for this video, it's going to be quite long, yeah, as it seems, kasi ang dami-dami nating mga objectives. Pero yeah, we can actually talk about them like in passing, or at least have an overview of what these all are. So we will begin with cell-cell communication by extracellular signaling. And then we're going to continue with the types of intercellular signaling. Alright, tapos we're going to discuss signaling mechanisms, tapos RAS superfamily of G proteins, and then RAS mutation and proliferation, tapos catalytic receptor signaling, and then important adapter molecules, and then PI3 kinase pathway, tapos signaling via non-receptor tyrosine kinases, and then steroid hormones. Yun yung pinaka-gusto ko actually part. Okay, so let us first talk about cell-cell communication by extracellular signaling. Okay, so as you can see in this illustration, meron tayo dyang different phases for the cell. So, yung sending cell is going to be this. A cell can be a sending cell. Ibig sabihin nun siya yung panggagalingan ng mismong signal called a ligand. And then the ligand can bind to a target cell if it fits the receptor, which in this case is this one right here. And because of that binding, magkakaroon ngayon ng transduction pathway that will lead to a response. Okay, remember that this is going to happen. The following are just going to happen if yung cell is a target cell. Kasi merong mga cells naman na hindi talaga sila dadapuan ni ligand kasi they don't have a receptor for that particular ligand. So, ang tawag sa kanila ay mga non-target cell. So, cells may be considered as the building blocks of life. Pero unlike static blocks, they are actually performing different functions. They perform a variety of tasks and communicate with one another through cell-cell communication, which is done by extracellular signaling. So we can call this as cellular communication. Okay, so this is how they communicate to one another. So just as how we use words and various symbols for communication, ang mga cells gumagamit naman sila ng signals called ligands to send messages to neighboring cells. These signals are chemical in nature. Ibig sabihin, they are comprised of elements. They're comprised of molecules and are secreted by sending cells into the extracellular space. Ito yung extracellular space na tinutukoy niya. It is the space outside of cells. Okay? And then it is going to be suspended. The ligand is going to be suspended in that space until it's going to be picked up by a target cell. Or it's going to just have or just suffer a particular fate. Okay. So unlike shouting words though, where everyone can actually hear the words you said or anyone said, ang mga chemical signals, meron sila again mga target cell. Ibig sabihin, just because a particular ligand came close to a cell, it doesn't mean na maapektuhan yung cell na yun. Okay, dapat yung cell na yun, meron siyang, you guessed it, receptor. Okay, so not all nearby cells will receive the signal. Only the target cells will receive it because they have compatible receptors that allows them to do so. Ang receptor is taga-receive. Okay, receive receptor. Okay. So ayan, next topic is going to be the following. So I want you to observe muna the following. Okay, so we have there the ligand, okay, na nagbind sa receptor. Tapos we have here the receptor. Tapos meron siyang parang changes, no? Naging siyang ganito, naging siyang ganon. Tapos nagkaroon ng response. So chemical messengers relay the signal. So these messengers are going to get the signal from this. Okay, tapos this and then this. So what are all these? Okay, so when a ligand binds to a receptor, it changes the activity or the shape or even both of the receptor. Kapag nabind na daw yung ligand sa isang receptor magbabago, mayroong siguradong magbabago sa receptor. Okay, so that now is going to cause changes inside the cell as well. Yung message is carried through a series of chemical messengers inside the cell. These signals can trigger a variety of responses such as stopping the release of production of certain molecules. Pwedeng yung signal na yon, it can stop the release of a particular hormone or a particular molecule. Or it can also change the activity of a particular gene. Pwede siyang mag-express, pwede siyang ma-inhibit, okay. And then, pwede rin siyang mag-initiate ng cell division. Yung signal, pwede rin siyang mag-initiate ng cell division. So, this means that the original intercellular signal through the ligand becomes an intracellular signal that triggers a response. Yung ligand is found in the extracellular space. Kaya ang tawag sa kanya is extracellular signal. Ngayon, because of the receptor, na-turn yung extracellular signal into an intracellular signal kasi si receptor is going to change nga. Tapos that change is going to be picked up by these chemical messengers until a particular response is going to be so the signal now intracellularly will originate from the receptor, okay, in layman's term. So that is the first part, a discussion about the cell-cell communication by extracellular signaling. Okay, so next one are the types of intercellular signaling. So what are the different types? Ito mabilis lang to. Paracrine signaling is yung target cell is just near the signaling cell. There's just this relatively close or short distance between them. And the chemical signal is merely diffused in the extracellular space they share, such as kapag nagsisignal ang mga neurons, okay, sa isa't isa. The synapse, okay, which is a space, doon nagkakaroon ng palitan ng signals between two neurons, which are, nerve cells. Okay, so, yan, that's paracrine. It is very important during periods of development because it allows a group of cells to tell the neighboring group what cell identity to take. Halimbawa, yung mga cells na nagpupunta, yung mga germ cells ba, if I'm not mistaken, yung mga cells na may capability to turn into a specific kind of cell. Okay, so once halimbawa they are involved already in the process of development, they will first arrive as a multi-purpose cell or a cell that can turn into anything. Okay, so now because of paracrine signaling, yung mga dinat na nilang mga cells na specialized na, say mga spinal cord cells na, they're just simply going to release a signal, okay, paracrinely, so that yung mga newbies na cell na pwedeng mag-turn into spinal cord cells, then, they will indeed turn into something like that. Okay, so that's it. And then autocrine signaling is when a cell is going to transmit a cell to itself. Bakit niya gagawin yun, di ba? Okay, papansin, char. Pero ang lang naman niya dyan, ang point lang naman niya dyan is the following. So, ang cells, ginagawa nila to by sending the ligand, ayun nga, to the extracellular space, tapos babalik din. Okay, so, since technically, nasa-send back lang yung ligand to itself, yung cell niyan, nangyayari sa kanya is kaya niyang ma-reinforce yung kanyang correct identity. Okay, halimbawa, macrophages release signals to themselves and nearby macrophages to regulate signal production, while cancer cells release signals to themselves para mag-stimulate yung growth nila. Kasi, if they are just going to stop growing, like if they are just going to stop maintaining a particular identity, like okay na ba tong, okay, halimbawa yan, now that the cell became a macrophage, okay, now that the cell became a cancer cell, so that's it. Ganun na lang siya, wala na siyang gagawin to maintain that identity, that cancerous identity, that macrophage identity. Meron siya dapat gawin, okay, so para siyang skincare. I don't know. Okay, so it's sort of, yeah, that is the simplest way I can explain this. Autocrine signaling is done so that the cell would be able to reinforce its own identity. Next is endocrine signaling. Ang endocrine signaling, it uses a word, it involves the use of a word that is familiar to everyone, which is endocrine. And we are all familiar with the endocrine glands, with the endocrine system. Okay, so what is this? It is when a cell targets a distant cell through the bloodstream. Ang signaling cell is connected to the target cell by means of the bloodstream. So, ginagamit yung mga blood vessels para makapunta. So, sobrang layo na, okay, nung distance. Sobrang laki na ng distance between the signaling cell and the target cell. So, yeah, when the target cell is located in a very far part of the body from where the signaling cell is and becomes possible by allowing the signal to be transported by the circulatory system, as I explained a while ago. So it is done when the pituitary gland located in the brain releases growth hormones, particularly to the skeletal system. Hormones are released through endocrine signaling. So, ayun. Halimbawa, meron gustong ipagawang growth yung pituitary gland, since it is the master gland. Pwede siyang mag-send ng signal to other glands sa ibang mga organs, okay, sa ibang mga organ system too, so that that particular function is going to be carried out. And since ang brain natin is nasa taas ng mga bodies natin and the rest of our bodies are maybe actually close or far, so my point is merong iba't ibang distances from the brain, kailangan ng brain ng mechanism to reach the far, cells from far places. Ayun. So, the last one is signaling across gap junctions. So, a cell targets a cell na nakakonect silang dalawa, okay, by gap junctions. So, merong gap, and then, because of that gap, kailangan ng junction. So, ito yung mga junctions. So, what do you call those junctions that connects two cells through a gap? They are called gap junctions. Okay, that's what you call those connections now. And signaling happens when two cells that are connected through water-filled gap junctions among animals or plasmodesmata among plants. Sa mga plants, meron silang plasmodesmata. Ito yung parang tubo na nagko-connect sa dalawang plant cells. Natural killer immune cell recognizes a healthy cell of the body by binding a self-marker on the cell's surface. So, ang NK, marerecognize niya ang isang cell na healthy by doing a gap, some sort of signaling across gap junctions. So, ganun niya na-maintain yung population ng mga healthy cells sa body. Small signaling molecules such as calcium ions called intracellular mediators, they can be diffused. Okay, by saying diffused, halimbawa si cell A, meron siyang i-release na mga calcium ions to cell B. Kasya yung mga yan. Kasya yung tawag doon, calcium ions through those gap junctions. Pwede silang mag-fit. So, since mataas ang concentration sa cell A, mas mataas ang concentration ng calcium ions sa cell A, kaya mag-diffuse ng calcium ions dun kay cell B. Remember, diffusion happens through only one direction, which is diffusion through an area of higher concentration or to an area of lower concentration. Well, if I am wrong, you can provide me with some constructive criticism under this video through the comment section. Okay, pero let us just accept that kind of diffusion that moves that is characterized as the movement of if it's a solution. In this case, a calcium ion is from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. I hope you're still with me. Okay. Pero yung mga larger molecules such as DNA, hindi sila pwede mag-fit. So, kailangan mayroon pang assistance yan. Baka you can talk about active transport. Okay, pwede rin naman yun. Now, this allows the coordination of a signal by a group of cells that only one of them received. Again, okay, anyway, if you heard a door, that is siguro my mom or my dad. Ayan. So this allows the coordination of a signal by a group of cells that only one of them received. Halimbawa, si cell A lang yung naka-receive ng signal kasi baka, masyadong maliit yung number of ligands na na-release, tapos yung mga ligands halos na-distribute na sa iba't ibang mga cells kaso may mga na-skip. So, through gap junctions, pwedeng ma-distribute pa rin yung intracellular signal, okay, papunta sa mga katabing cells, especially if they are connected by gap junctions or by the plasmodesmata. Now, because of that, the organism becomes a giant network. So yan, cells may also carry some complementary proteins on their surfaces that can bind and cause changes in one or both the proteins transmitting a signal, such as cell surface markers that are important in the immune system to identify cells, and yung mga invader cells. Ayan. So that is for the types of intercellular signaling. Let us now move to the signaling mechanism. So, pinapakita dito yung extracellular fluid, extracellular space ito. Tapos, this is the cytoplasm. Okay? So, they are divided by this gray thing right here. Okay, so ito yung parang ito yung parang gate, ito yung parang walls that separate these two. So, yung extracellular and space and the cytoplasm. So, yeah. You still heard that door. Okay. Wala pa kasi yung studio eh. Ayan. So, yeah. Now, the first step for signaling mechanism is going to be reception. Okay, so reception, this occurs when a signaling molecule, a ligand from the extracellular space binds with a receptor protein on the surface of a cell or inside the cell. Actually, pwede rin mangyari yun. Okay? Pwede yung receptor nasa loob na siya ng cell. Pwede rin mangyari yun. Okay? So, yan. But one thing's for sure, when reception happens, laging merong ligand na nababind sa isang receptor. Okay, I hope that is clear. Next one is transduction. So for transduction, okay, ganito yung nangyayari. After na-receive nung mismong ligand, yung receptor protein is going to change, usually in shape, initiating the carrying of the signal molecule by passing it over to different molecules down an intracellular signal transduction pathway. So pag nag-change na siya ng shape, okay, meron na niyang ma-attract sa kanyang mga iba't ibang mga molecules na pwedeng kumuha ng signal, tapos pwede sila mag-change ng shape, ayun, and then the signal is going to be carried as an intracellular signal so that a response is going to be created. So a specific cellular response is going to be triggered, okay? It may be controlling gene expression, pwede siyang response na protein activity, controlling protein activity, or a response pwede ring mag-promote ng change in metabolic activity. Ayan, so that is for the part of the signaling mechanism. So basic lang yan, okay? Merong mga iba't ibang mga signaling mechanisms, and I know na merong mga mas komplikado pa doon. Pero if you are a junior high school student, more or less, yun yung pwede mong tandaan. Okay? For the teachers, hello po. If you want to use that kind of explanation for the signaling mechanism, you may. And again, I can share you the presentation para po less work na lang. Okay, so, ayan. I hope I made myself clear. Kasi syempre, we may have some viewers from the higher education institutions, universities and colleges. So yeah, they may know something more than just this. And if you have some corrections po, our channel is very much open for them. Just leave some constructive criticisms in our comment section. Now, let's talk about the RAS superfamily of G proteins. Ang mga members ng superfamily na to are involved in the regulation of a variety of signal transduction processes. Sila yung pinaka-sikat na superfamily according to this part of the discussion. Okay, so these proteins only bind with guanine nucleotides and function as a switch for the transduction pathway by shuttling between guanosine triphosphate bound or GTP bound and guanosine diphosphate bound or GDP bound forms. So they can turn themselves on by shuttling to become GTP bound, or they can switch themselves off by shuttling towards becoming GDP bound. This superfamily is comprised of the raw, okay, the RAB, ARF or alternative reading frame, RAN, which is RAS-related nuclear, and RAS, which is rat sarcoma. Okay, so yung RAS, which is rat sarcoma, is the founding member. So, siya yung pinakaunang member ng superfamily na to. So, again, remember, they're only binding with guanine. Okay, so the pathways controlled by these proteins include a variety of pathways such as signal transduction, cellular growth, transformation, transport, motility, traffic, and adhesion. Okay, so that's it for the superfamily of G proteins, RAS superfamily of G proteins. Now, let's talk about RAS mutation and proliferation. Ang mga rat sarcoma are considered to be proto-oncogenes. Okay, so in our other discussions, in the other videos, a proto-oncogene is they are capable of becoming oncogenes, okay, which are going to give instructions for uncontrolled cell divisions. So ayan, rat sarcoma are considered to be those that have the capability of turning a cell into a cancer cell, which are present in human cells and are prone to mutation. So let's take note of that. These superfamily with those wide abilities, they are also prone to mutation. So these proteins are encoded by HRAS, KRAS, and NRAS genes, and as mentioned, function as molecular switches in transduction and regulation pathways that are responsible for cell proliferation and cell survival. Now, RAS proteins that are regulated by guanine nucleotide exchange factors, or GEFs, that promote guanosine diphosphate dissociation and guanosine triphosphate binding. So yung switch on and off, okay, as well as GTPase activating proteins that triggers GTPase activities to shut down signaling are being affected. Okay, so when there is an aberration in the function of RAS, which happens often, there is a high risk of hyperproliferative developmental disorders. Hyperproliferative, it means sobrang dami ng mga cells na mapoproduce, sobrang bilis ng cell division process. And thus, because of that, pwede rin it is going to lead to cancer. Okay, so kasi ganun lang naman yung diba, yung cancer, and the way we know it, it's just uncontrolled cell division. The next part is going to be catalytic receptor signaling. So what we can see now in this illustration is the following. Ayan, so meron ka dito na, actually this is the same, okay, all throughout. It's just that na-multiply siya kasi I need to show you, or the illustration needs to show you how it progressed. So first, it's inactive. Tapos there are these tyrosine kinase domain. This is the cytosol or cytoplasm site, and then this is the extracellular space. This is the receptor tyrosine kinase right here, and then this is our ligand. So the signal dimer binds. So the ligand is going to bind, which will activate the tyrosine kinase domain. Thus, the kinase activity is stimulated, and then the mangyayari is tyrosines are phosphorylated, okay, in this end. And then the fourth part and the last part is that intracellular proteins bind to phosphotyrosine docking sites. So, eto sila. They will be binding to these sites. We call this as the phosphotyrosine docking sites, which then are going to carry out the next part, the next steps of the transduction pathway. So catalytic receptors are dimeric. They have a ligand binding domain placed on the extracellular surface of the cell membrane, separated by a single transmembrane spanning domain of hydrophobic amino acids from the functional domain in the intracellular phase of the cell membrane. So what is this sentence talking about? This right here is the ligand binding domain. Okay, and then the transmembrane is right here. Ito siya. So from the external part, it extends to the internal part of the cell. Okay, so this is transmembrane, and then the functional domain is this one, this tyrosine kinase domain. So that is how it is for catalytic receptor signaling. This functional domain can interact with enzymes, thus it is named as catalytic. Okay. Again, that side, yung nasa ilalim, tyrosine kinase domain, is the one that can interact with enzymes. That's why it is called as the catalytic. Okay, so after a ligand binds with the ligand binding domain, the receptor itself can act as an enzyme that will start the transduction of the message. So instead of just changing, and thus it's going to that change will hopefully just cause the other molecules intracellularly to conduct or start the transduction process, the mismong receptor na pwede na siyang mag-act as an enzyme, which is going to start the transduction of the message. That is it for the catalytic receptor signaling. The next part of the discussion is our important adapter molecules. So right here, AP1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all adapter protein complexes. As you can see, meron silang pare-parehong hinge, meron silang mga ears. Okay, so again, they have hinges, they have ears. And as you can see, they're also bound to the phospholipid bilayer. Ito din sa membrane. Tapos, they are found inside the cytoplasm, okay, inside the cell, okay, in the cytosol. And then this one is the extracellular space or lumen, as it is referred to in here. So, lahat ng to, magkakawig sila, but they actually have specific purposes, okay? They can actually adapt to various processes. Ang mga cell responses, a cell responses to external stimuli, and those external stimuli may be varied, okay? They may be diverse. They require great specificity. So because of that, there's a requirement for a vast array then of signaling pathways. So when okay, hopefully everything is going to be covered, and so to make sure that every single signal is covered, these adapter cells are present. So extracellular receptors responding to various ligands initiate cell signals managed by post-translational process, recruitment of protein binding partners, and protein-to-protein interactions. Yeah, so next. Thus, it's a leading trend among scientists now in molecular biology is the study of signal transduction and the search for mechanisms that rule the crosstalk between signaling cascades, as well as how is specificity being achieved. And so, isa yan sa mga pinag-aaralan. Now, under this theme, since ayun nga, pinag-aaralan yung various transduction pathways at kung paano nagagawa ng cell na napaka-specific ng response niya, lumilitaw din dyan sa studies na yan yung about sa adapter proteins or adapter proteins. Okay. They have a wide variety of protein binding modules. They are capable of linking protein binding partners together. Linking specific proteins helps cellular signals trigger appropriate responses from cell to the environment. Specific signaling is going to be achieved, first, by the type of encoded protein binding molecules by the adapter protein. The second one, the sequences of the domains. And the third one, the proximity of the binding partners, yung distance nila from each other. So, the high specificity of transduction pathway or a chemical signal of a cell signal is achieved, and mostly it's because of these adapter proteins. Next is the PI3 kinase pathway. And so this is this means phosphoinositide. I am really finding it hard to pronounce it up until now. Phosphoinositide 3 kinase pathway. So PI3K is an enzyme family selectively phosphorylating the 3-hydroxyl group of the inositol head group of the phosphoinositide PI lipids. Okay, this family has 3 divisions. The first one, class 1, are complexes with regulatory and catalytic subunits and can generate 2 major species of phosphoinositide. Class 2 selectively phosphorylate PI and PI4P, and Class 3 only produce PI3P. And these are the kinds of destinations for the PI3 kinase pathway. As you can see, marami rin. Okay, so cell migration, proliferation, which is also cell division, survival or the endurance or durability, the durability and the coping mechanisms that a particular cell can employ before, of course, dying. Angiogenesis, which is for the production of blood vessels. Glycogen synthesis, the production of some sugars for the stocking of energy. And then protein synthesis, the production of proteins, in other words. So PI3K enzymes or PI phosphatases, D3-phosphoinositide and their direct binding partners consist the PI3 pathway. So all of them, yung PI phosphatases, D3-phosphoinositide, and the PI3K enzymes are all involved. So phosphoinositide 3 kinase or PI3K pathway is already done discussed. I know it is very it's very shallow of a discussion, but I hope that you bear with me that again I'm creating a video that is intended for junior high school students. So what I mean by putting this in the video is for them to know that this particular pathway can also actually arrive with the same ends as the other pathways for cell signaling. Next one is signaling via non-receptor tyrosine kinases. So, yung mga nandito, meron tayong mga growth factors. Okay, so, platelet-derived growth factor, andyan din siya. So, tyrosine kinases or TKs are enzymes catalyzing the transfer of a phosphate group from an ATP to a molecule. These tyrosine kinases are acting as mediators to all signal transduction pathways. This makes them a wide contributor to various biological responses to internal and external triggers, modulating cellular growth, differentiation, or the turning of a cell into a specific kind of cell, migration, metabolism, apoptosis, or cell death, and survival. What they can do is they selectively phosphorylate tyrosine residues. So when there is a residue and it's tyrosine, they can phosphorylate that. TKs are divided into three. The first one are receptor tyrosine kinases. So they rely on a receptor for them to work, and then non-receptor tyrosine kinases, which obviously do not require a receptor. Receptor tyrosine kinases or RTKs allow the transmission of signals from the extracellular surface to the cytoplasmic proteins and even to the nucleus because of having the following parts. So, ang isang RTK, ang isang receptor tyrosine kinase, it has the following parts. An extracellular ligand binding site, okay, that is found in the extracellular space. Doon pwedeng mag-bind yung mga ligand. Then meron din siyang next part which is a single transmembrane hydrophobic disulfide bond na naglilink dun sa ligand binding site, dun naman sa cytoplasmic portion with catalytic and regulation features. So para siyang catalytic receptor pathways. So RDKs function as cell receptors, and they're also constituting enzymes with kinase activity associated with gene expression, cell division, interference, migration, and can process epidermal growth factors, insulin, and PDGF or platelet-derived growth factors. Kaya nilang i-process yan. On the other hand, ang mga NRTKs naman, they lack the extracellular ligand binding site. Ang meron lang sila yung wala rin silang transmembrane. Meron lang sila yung last. Yung functional part niya dun sa loob ng cell. An NRTK, wala siya nung extracellular ligand binding site. Wala rin siya ng transmembrane. Okay, so kaya nga siya tinawag na non-receptor. Ang mga NRTKs are intracellular cytoplasmic proteins and they are bound to the cell membrane. Naka-standby lang sila sa cell membrane. They regulate cell division. They also regulate cell proliferation, which is basically the same thing if you're gonna ask me. Pero if it's not, then I hope that you will be providing me an explanation para rin, a chance for learning. Okay. And then cell survival, gene expression, immune response, among others. That is our discussion for that particular part. Next one is, the last one, I believe, is steroid hormone. So I want you to observe muna the following. So as you can see, meron tayong mga familiar na mga terms dyan. We have acetate, the first one. Perhaps you're familiar with this kasi pang-cover siya ng books, kaya ng notebooks. Cholesterol naman, you know this pretty well. I don't have to elaborate. You know what is testosterone. Okay, you're familiar with that. You're also familiar, I hope, with cortisol, and you're also familiar with progesterone. Yeah, you may be looking for estrogen. So, nasan kaya si estrogen? And so, ang mga hormones or steroid hormones are lipid hormones which are usually ketones or alcohols. And they are insoluble with water. You cannot dissolve them in water. Okay, so they're not solutes. And they belong to a class of steroids that come from, among humans, the adrenal cortex, pwede rin sa testes, and pwede rin sa ovaries. They are collectively referred to as steroid glands. Ngayon, pwede rin manggaling ang mga yan, yung mga steroid hormones from the placenta during pregnancy. So, it is in the case of females, of course. And then, all steroid hormones were derived from cholesterol, as it is said here. Okay, so, cholesterol, they are the sources of steroid hormones, and their mode of transport is endocrine. It means the signaling cell is very far from the receiving or to the target cell, and thus, there is a need for the circulatory system to carry the hormone, okay, from the signaling cell to the target cell. Mga hormones are classified depending on the organ where they are synthesized. So, in this case, adrenal steroids are those that came from the adrenal gland. Okay, while sex hormones are produced by the testes or the ovaries. Okay, so, yung mga sex hormones are coming from the sex glands. Bear with me, just think of it like that. I know they can't be just called sex glands, pero just think of them that way na lang, at least for this video. This is not actually exclusive because adrenal cortices can, at some extent, lower than the gonads, secrete some sex hormones. So, what do you mean by that? Ang adrenal cortex, ang mga adrenal cortices, pwede rin sila mag-release ng mga sex hormones na if you're gonna recall what we said a while back is that kailangan magagaling lang sa mga sex glands. Tama? Okay, so let me rephrase that. What this sentence is saying that adrenal cortices can also release glands that come from these sex glands or the gonads. Kaya ring mag-produce ng adrenal cortices ng sex hormones. I hope that is clear now. So, yeah. Let us first talk about the adrenal gland or the adrenocortical hormones. They are produced in the adrenal cortex. They are classified into glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. So, glucocorticoids such as cortisol controls such as formation of glucose from amino and fatty acids and deposition of glycogen in the liver. These help maintain blood sugar levels. They are also having these anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressive actions, which are aiding in treating rheumatoid arthritis and better the acceptance of transplanted organs. So next ones are mineralocorticoids, the second type of adrenocortical hormones. These are hormones like aldosterone, maintaining the balance of water and salts in the body with their effects to the kidneys. The next one are the androgens. So you guessed it right, coming from the male sex hormones. They're actually male sex hormones coming from the male sex glands. Okay. Its main form, testosterone, is produced in the male testes. Tapos napoproduce din siya sa adrenal cortex with lesser amounts, and napoproduce din siya in ovaries among women. Yeah, it's actually correct. Androgens can also be produced by the ovaries. They play a primary role in the maintenance of secondary male characteristics, including reproductive functions or the production of semen or sperm cells. They have anabolic or synthesizing function, which involve the production of skeletal muscles, of bones, and red blood cells. Androgens are parang majoring on that. Kaya nga ang mga bodies ng mga lalaki, more often than not, okay, I'm not generalizing, are usually bigger. okay, compared sa bodies ng mga babae. Next one is estrogen. Okay, I cannot really say estrogens, okay, because we are only going to talk about estrogen as it is. So, estrogen is one of the two female sex hormones. It is secreted in the ovaries. Pwede rin siya masecrete by the adrenal glands, pero sa mga maliliit na amounts lang. Tapos, napoproduce din siya sa testes ng mga lalaki. It is the most potent estrogen is called the estradiol, which acts as a growth hormone for female reproductive organs, including the vaginal lining, cervical glands, lining of the fallopian tubes, the endometrium and the myometrium, and for the maintenance of a proper oocyte environment in the ovary. And speaking of oocyte, we'll be talking about progesterone mamaya, specifically regarding the fertilization of an egg. Now, they stimulate the secondary female characteristics as well as linear growth, o yung pagtangkad, and skeletal maturation, o yung pagiging strong ng bones. Okay. Now, let's talk about the progestins. Progestins it is one of the two female sex hormones. A progestin is named after their major role during pregnancy, so progestin, and are secreted cyclically with estrogens during menstruation. In the menstrual cycle, ang isang ruptured ovarian follicle produces progesterone, making it receptive to a fertilized ovum. And if it does occur, the placenta becomes the main source of progesterone. Dun concentrated yung hormone na to. Without it, pregnancy will be terminated. Now, as the pregnancy progresses, yung progesterone level, nagka-climb up din siya. Kaya nga, nasusuppress yung ovulation. It also prevents pregnancy. Let us repeat that. Because of the fact that as pregnancy progresses, tumataas ang progesterone, which also prevents the conception of a new fertilized egg. Nagagamit actually ito for contraception. Okay, so ayun. O nga, parang if humans find a way of increasing the progesterone levels of a female, so that hindi siya mag-gestate, hindi siya mabuntis. Okay, so that is a way for contraception. It is actually quite, if you're gonna ask me, partly natural, partly artificial. And so these are the topics that we discussed in cell signaling. So first is cell-cell communication by extracellular signaling. The second one are the types of intercellular signaling. The third topic is for signaling mechanisms. And then we talked about RAS superfamily of G proteins. We also talked about RAS mutation and proliferation. Catalytic receptor signaling. Remember, meron siyang 3 parts. Okay, so yung ligand binding site, transmembrane, and yung active site sa loob. Yung catalytic site. And then important adapter molecules. We also talked about the phosphoinositide 3 kinase pathway. We also talked about signaling via non-receptor tyrosine kinases. Actually, we also talked about signaling via tyrosine kinases, receptor tyrosine kinases. And then lastly, we talked about steroid hormones. Okay, so that is it for cell signaling, and I hope that this video helped you even just a bit in understanding that topic. Okay, so this is the Knowledge Catalog. It is a brand I am developing. I am a high school teacher up until now in the Philippines, up until now, and I love developing content that I find useful and needed to better my instruction. If you want to support me or show some support, you can subscribe to this channel. Okay, I can use a little support, especially right now. And then you can also provide me some positive and critical feedback sa ating comment section in case you found some errors in this video. I will gladly read them out. Just please be nice. Let us be nice to each other. Okay, the world needs more nice people. So, thank you so much. Okay, I'll be seeing you in the next video.